Okay, I think we're official. Thank you everyone for joining us this morning for a very, very important meeting. I know that we have such busy, busy schedules that for you all to carve out this time tells me a lot about that you recognize the importance of the opportunity that we're going to talk about today. As you know from the agenda, there is a recommendation that we are going to put before the whole ECLC for regarding a next step related to early childhood governance in the state of Colorado. Just a reminder of process for the last several weeks. A subset, a work group of the ECLC. Everyone was invited, but a smaller work group of the ECLC has been meeting to review and look at the sort of context of where we are and to decide what, if anything, the role of the Early Childhood Leadership Commission should be in this context. And reminding you that we are the federally mandated Early Childhood Advisory Council for the state of Colorado in statute, that we have certain responsibilities that we need to live up to, including assist and monitor efforts to enhance alignment across programs and across agencies that support young children and their families. We are to develop strategies and monitor efforts to increase the access, quality, and equity of services and supports on behalf of pregnant women and young children. And we are to advise and make recommendations to the governor's office, the General Assembly, and the State Department. So in our statute is a responsibility that seems to align exactly with the circumstances that we're in right now. And the wonderful catalyst for all of this was the overwhelming vote in November that we're going to have a universal preschool program here in Colorado. And we need to get going on that so that we're ready to serve all kids, because it is universal throughout the state of Colorado. And that means Front Range and everywhere else in the state. Looking at Jeff Kerr there, I always remember to say that out loud so he knows that we know that. And to really be thoughtful about how we can do this in the most efficient and effective way to serve the kids and their families first. This is what we're about now, is to make sure that these services are address the needs of kids and families, and that at the same time, we try and take advantage of the alignment, the working together, the recognizing our place in the continuum of education for kids, and recognizing that we're a vital part of it, but we're part of a continuum. With all that in mind, the small work group got together and said, one more step. Immediately after Prop EE was approved, the commission stepped into our advisory role and did a preschool policy discussion guide to really call out for people what are the things, and this was very specific to universal preschool at that program, at that moment, what are the things that we know from our experience and from our work in Colorado, what has to be there, centered mostly predominantly around the idea of equity to children and families, equity to the workforce, and equity to the communities, but also many other must-haves that we thought were very important, including a mixed delivery system, including streamlined administrative burden for both providers and families, several must-haves that we outlined. So all of that came together with the opportunity to be aware of the fact that there was a lot of planning going on. There's a lot of planning that needed to happen. The Children's Campaign and Milestones put together an enormous effort around engagement and awareness on this. The Preschool Policy Leadership Committee with the Preschool Policy Advisory Group, and with focus groups from around the state. Last count, and I know it's way higher than this, but 60 plus focus groups with hundreds of people attending those focus groups and contributing with suggestions and ideas about what's going to be important for this effort with universal preschool. What came out of that was a very clear highlighting of an opportunity we have here. It is about universal preschool. It is about the money that Prop E approved, but it's also our chance to look at our whole system and to think about how can we do it better? How can we build on all of the success we've had? We've had great success in for the people that are doing the work now, predominantly in the Department of Human Services with the CCAP and many other family support and care kinds of programs, and the amazing work that's also been in the Department of Education with an outstanding Colorado preschool program, looking at results now from graduating kids that are quite remarkable. We want to build on that, and we want to make that all work together in one big system that's the very best that it can be around the preschool and younger, recognizing we're part of that continuum as well. All of those discussions, all of those hopes and dreams, all of those opportunities came down to, we need to think about a different way of governing this. What is the best way to govern this particular, in this particular context at this time? How can we make sure that all the things are working in alignment, that things are coming together, that things are as effective as they can be, that we're maximizing all the possible resources, including state ones, but also including federal resources? How do we bring this all together and shoot up what will be the very best possible system in Colorado with the money that we have, and also with, we hope, will be more money, whether it's through federal grants or other opportunities, and also possibly, if we're really lucky, some major funding streams coming down from the federal government as well on a regular basis. So we want to be ready for even more money, and we want to work in connection with the great work that's going on around the state and several communities that have also already approved some sort of a funding stream towards early childhood in Colorado. It's a lot to all bring together. That alignment piece comes to mind. But out of all of that, what everyone has identified, first things first, how can we govern this? What's the best way to govern this? And so the task force, the smaller work group of the ECLC, has met for all of these weeks, talked through all the learnings, brought in some experts from in the state and out of state that are doing some important new ideas around this, learned from all of those. And out of all of that is a recommendation that we are putting forth that you have seen. It's you've seen the 2-pager with our latest language, with what we're recommending. And that's what we're here to discuss today, and to we're going to ask you for a vote of approval for this recommendation so that we can present it out to, as we've been charged, to the legislature, to the state departments, and to the governor's office. One final note, and then I think Pamela's going to take us through the actual recommendation and discussion. We have been doing this in cooperation and collaboration and with state departments, working with the people that are involved in this at the State Department level to make sure that we are aligning and maximizing with what they do, and moving forward from that, not starting over, not trying to go back to square one, but to really build on the success we've had for all of these years in those departments. And as our partners, our partners both directly and indirectly sometimes. Whew, that was a lot to talk about, but it's very, very exciting. So Pamela, you want to go to the actual recommendation?
Yes, and thank you, Susan. That was very comprehensive. And that work, some of it started 6 months ago and some of it started 6 weeks ago. And so just thank you all who have helped us with this and provided information and input. So in the recommendation, the first part, we just talk again about the strengths that we have in this state around early childhood programs. We are proud of all that we have done and have been focusing on how to support the experience for young children in early childhood, how to support families in meeting their needs, and then how do we support the early childhood workforce. So we list some of those in the beginning. I think everybody's familiar with the early childhood Colorado framework. So those domains are still guiding us: health and well-being, family support and education, early learning and development. And as we continue to have that guide us, as Susan shared, our discussion guide for preschool policy also lays out the must-haves, the things that are helping us think about our work. And so being centered on equity is the thing that comes through all of this information, recommendations that we're sharing. In the beginning, we did it was a discussion around Proposition EE. How do we do full day universal preschool, not full day, universal preschool? And then realized that this is just an amazing opportunity to think about what might be other programs that we can connect, intersect, align with universal preschool. And so saw it as an opportunity, as Susan was sharing, to really focus on the system. And so the recommendation is that the creation of a new cabinet level state agency dedicated to early childhood that consolidates the various authorities, programs, and funding streams that currently exist across state agencies and focuses on a unified version of comprehensive early childhood service delivery for all children birth to age 5. So in essence, that is our recommendation. The other things that we want to make sure are considered and part of this process, first is needing time to plan. So we know that we'll need some resources, planning time over the next year to really develop a thoughtful transition plan, be able to think about the agency itself, what needs to be incorporated. And again, we will be relying heavily on all of our partners. So state agencies, service providers, community partners, families. We want to make sure that we have a comprehensive, extensive stakeholder input. So the next part, the next 4 sort of things we want to make sure, again, are considered. And as we thought about this recommendation, these are the pieces that we think are really important. So first, child and family-centered services. We talk a lot about serving the whole child. And so we know that is in early childhood is part of the reason we say early care and education, because all of that is integrated. And we want it to be seamless access for our families and a holistic approach, again, to serving children. The second one is streamlining administrative burden. And so one thing that we talked about is with this state agency, that any of the systems we create, that the burden of those should be on the state agency, that we actually want to lift the burden from our families, from our providers, so that, again, there's just easier, equitable access. The third part is funding opportunity and accountability. And we realize that this is, at this point, universal preschool from EE is a one funding stream. We know that the system, for what we want to do and for what our vision is more than that. And so we really want this office to have the ability to grow investments. And so to think about what sort of flexibility needs to be involved in setting up the agency, want to be able to like contract for services. And I think the other thing that's exciting is the opportunity to explore different funding sources, streams, practices. So as we think about, again, the system, we're not thinking about current funding. We are also thinking about how do we make sure that we fully support and fund an early care and education system. And then part of this is also accountability. And we want to make sure that this is working. So again, sort of back to that flexibility and ability to be responsive to the needs of families and providers and children. And so evaluation is part of that idea of opportunity and accountability. And then the fourth one really gets to governance and authority. That part of this, as we set up the agency, needs to have statutory authority that centralizes the management, oversight of program planning, of funding, of policy. We think there's a role also for a formalized policymaking board. And so this might be the role that the Early Childhood Leadership Commission plays. The other piece that's woven throughout this is also quality, standards, maintaining and enhancing the diversity of our workforce. So got kind of all those must-haves that we talk about, that needs to be part of the focus within this agency. So we just, it just feels like this sort of incredible opportunity that the things we've been doing previously have led us here. We want to take advantage of this. Having a a cabinet level person elevates and underscores what we know as the importance of early care and education. We think it also provides an opportunity for different ways to partner and integrate across agencies that may not have been able to happen as much before. And then in the end, our goal, our vision is that all children are valued, healthy, and thriving. So that's our recommendation. That's background to how we see this moving forward. And so now we're open for questions or comments.
Hey, Pamela, it's Ryan. Great work by the subcommittee, or I'm maybe using the working group on this. It's really well done and concise. It's difficult to say things in 2 pages worth of wording, which is terrific how the group did it. And actually the explanation kind of helps me, really helped me and my biggest question. As I entered into the commission, one of the things you'd notice is this, mixed delivery, and the fact that, I think most of us believe that that's how you get the most providers, right? And mixed delivery,
right.
So on and so forth. And with each mixed delivery, there's an association, a nonprofit, a preschool program at the county level, a preschool, right? There's just a lot of stakeholders. Does this, and even the government had, Health and Human Services and all these things. Does this replace anything or de-emphasize anything, or does this commission just work with all those, and I'm using the wrong terminology again, not commission, but
the new state
the government,
agency?
the new state agency.
Yeah.
Does it just corral it? Does anything disappear? Does it not?
Yeah.
I guess my big concern is we need one more. We need one more group. We already have too many groups, right? Part of it is it's not totally coordinated. So is this a body that coordinates that on top of all the other things mentioned here, or does it de-emphasize certain hands that are in the midst of this, or even replace certain hands that are in the midst of this? And I know that's a tricky question, because it probably opens a can of worms, but it was the only thing that came to mind. I think it's really well done, and I'm supportive. It just, in my mind, I started to say, okay, how does this puzzle come together? So sorry for the long-winded approach, but hopefully that helps.
I think those are great questions, Ryan. And part of that is what will be happening in the planning process. I would say in terms of mixed delivery, I think this shows a demonstrated commitment to mixed delivery. It sort of, I don't know, institutionalizes it is the right way to phrase it, but that we value family choice. And so we want to create all the opportunities that families might be looking for in early care and education. Anyone else want to share?
I would just say, Ryan, that the idea here is that we know there is value in each of those. There is a great value in the Colorado preschool program that is addressing kids and families with risk factors. There's great value in the supports to families through the CCAP program. There's great value in all of these various kinds of programs, some of them home visitation, which is a less formal way of doing it. There's value in all of them. But what doesn't make sense is for them all to circle in a separate orbit, to try and get them all working together, and maybe even assuring that the funds from various funding streams can be organized and sorted in a way that families maximize what is available to them in the easiest possible way. So I think we don't want to lose any of the valuable things. We want them all sort of to align with one another and to work together and not be separate paths for everything moving forward.
Yeah, it's almost like a curated. It's almost like a curated approach, right? Like to the concept of just, hey, you take families or a preschool. I don't want to say a package, but it's effectively a coordinated approach, as opposed to, it's very difficult is having a kind of source. You end up picking three and just running with it, right? Whether that's the right approach or not. So that's a great answer.
I would
Happy had something to say.
Yeah, I'd love to. I thought that was a great question, and I think a lot of people will go right to that question. And it's always a good question to ask. If we're going to do something else, what are we going to stop doing? It's a good discipline question to ask. But I would say, piggybacking on what Pamela said and what Susan said, we're building on what the success of that has already occurred, even in these separate places. A lot of good work. I would start with it's coordination first. It's coordination, alignment, and then you'll notice in the document that one of the opportunities is about identifying efficiencies and innovations. So somewhere down the road, once we get alignment and we're coordinated and we're experiencing the benefits just from that alone, then this agency might very well identify ways to consolidate or to reorganize or to find efficiencies in the way that each of those things is being done that would look different than the way they do today. But I think, and it's an organic process, and I think you get to the best way of how you're eventually going to be organized by learning how it's done now, finding the efficiencies, finding the alignment, and then identifying new ways, new innovative ways and efficiencies that will make it better in the long run. So I thought that was a great question, and it's one we thought a lot about, and I think it'll have to be part of the process, and not just the planning process. I think the final answer to your question will result from the good work that the agency itself will do in bringing these various programs and funding streams together and looking for ways to be more efficient and to be more effective in delivering services.
That's great. Thanks, Happy.
That's right.
Jeannie?
Yeah, I sort of want to just cut to the chase because there's so much to think about how this could actually operate. And what we're actually, I believe, doing is saying we're supportive of creating this and this agency, this cabinet level position, and then we'll create that roadmap as to how it's going to be. And all of the pieces that we need to be sure are in there and who the stakeholders are. But this legislation will allow us the opportunity to create the roadmap forward. We don't have to have all the pieces in place now, because I immediately start going, oh, wait, what are we doing with kids with special needs? What are we doing? And I get into the weeds, and this is a higher level that we are supportive of raising this to a cabinet level, and that's what we need to be doing.
Yeah. Thank you, Jeannie, very much. Sue.
Yeah, I would just respond, Ryan, that I think one of the barriers that we have right now is different regulatory authorities. So because these programs live in different agencies, they have very siloed approaches to regulation. And I think by having one agency, it gives us the opportunity to look at these programs in a much more cohesive way. And again, not putting the burden on providers and families to kind of create the alignment, but to do that at the highest level possible. I think that's the greatest opportunity here.
So team, I want to thank everyone. I think really well said. And I kind of got myself during the answers to, hey, we got to build the agency and then figure it right. Well, we'll figure it out from there. You can't ask all those questions in advance. So I think really well said. I'm kind of getting the sense that as we go down the path, if it's taking things away from anyone, it's like the stuff that's a real pain that isn't core competency or anything like that. So like, I don't think anyone would have any problem with that. If someone took all my, work that's a pain, I would love them for it. So I do have to jump, and I'm so sorry to ask my question and then leave. But I did want to, make sure with me being out on vacation last week that I shared that one question. And I think it was wonderful answers by everyone, really great thoughts, and we'll figure it out in execution. This is just step one. So thank you. And just for the record, I'm supportive when you take a vote. So.
Do you want to give somebody your proxy so that they can vote for you? Does that work?
I'd be glad to do that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Angie, we can't do that.
Oh, can't do it. Sorry, my bad.
But we tried. But that's official if you did it that way.
That's good.
Can we simply make a motion to approve?
So moved.
Well, we still
make
have
a motion
before he's done. Hang in there, Ryan.
I move that we approve the recommendation.
And second?
Second.
Any discussion? It seems like we have some more discussion to do. Yes.
I had one thing I wanted to say. I brought this up to Christina just beforehand, and I apologize for this because I was out last week. And so I did want to make some comments to the recommendation. I think it's a great recommendation. I fully support it. One of the areas that we did have some dialogue around was specifically, obviously, the need for the new agency to not create new administrative burden, especially for kind of our private providers and the private sector as a whole when it comes to the early childhood infrastructure. And so I had recommended adding a sentence on the streamlining of administrative burden to simply reflect that the new state agency will be designed to innovate and use supporting agencies as needed to meet the needs of both public and private providers to create a thriving early childhood infrastructure. So I think, again, I agree entirely with what Jeannie said, is that there's a lot of details that still need to be figured out. So I don't necessarily need that to be put into the recommendation, but because it was something that was discussed to some length, I think it's important that it be acknowledged and put out here, and something that I think would be helpful as we go through the design process.
That's great. Thanks, Adeep. Do we have that language from you?
I did send it to Christina, and I recommended that we ended at the last sentence of that number 2 recommendation.
Under streamlined. Okay. Great. Other discussion, Kate?
Hi there. Just as a member of the committee and then also as a funding representative too, I'm excited about this. I think it's really wonderful to think about the efficiencies and also just making sure that we're maximizing any investment, both public and private, that's coming into the state. I think it's going to be a really good system that's put in place. And yes, in the short term, there will probably be a lot of hurdles to overcome, a lot of pain points, but our eye is really on that long-term vision of where we can be finding those efficiencies in the system that's really focused on the child. So just want to reiterate my support.
That's great. Thank you, Kate. George.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank Susan and Pamela for the job they've done shepherding us through this process. Holy mackerel, a big, gigantic thing. It's been open. It's been transparent. It's all have been welcome to offer input, and I appreciate that. In superintendent circles I've spoken to, there is, of course, trepidation about creating a new government department. However, I think everyone ultimately circles back to the realization and understanding that establishing a department for early childhood in a state like Colorado would be a major plus for the state and for these programs. And so I wholeheartedly support the work that we've accomplished here.
That's great. Thank you, George. Christine, could you type in Adib's addition into the chat or cut and paste? Thank you. And then the committee, yes, the commission votes, and then there's public comment. So that was from John Paul Burden. And public comment is at the end of the meeting, so you'll see it on the agenda. We're almost to that time. Other discussion? So we have a motion on the floor and seconded. So we would be adding to the recommendation the statement from Adib that Christina just put into the chat box. That sentence would come under number 2, the streamlined administrative burden, and be the last sentence. Is that right, Adib, on that paragraph?
And just to clarify, this was vetted by the work group earlier. We had several in our last iteration. We went through and added several small changes, and Adib had mentioned this, and we had all in principle agreed to that ahead of time. This isn't a brand new idea today for us. It just didn't get fully fleshed out in that last version, and Adib was out last week, so he didn't catch us on that quite at the exact instant it happened. But just to be very clear, this isn't a major change. It was approved previously in concept.
So I can amend. I can amend my motion to include the addendum from Adib.
Perfect.
Great. Okay.
And I'll second that.
Okay.
And can you all read the sentence? I cannot see the chat box.
The sentence is, the new state agency will be designed to innovate and use supporting agencies as needed to meet the needs of both public and private providers and create a thriving early childhood infrastructure. And Happy, I see your hands up.
Yes. Thank you, Pamela. And at the risk of dragging this out, I wonder if I know public comment is at the end, but I wonder if there were any particular comments that were specific to this action that we might want to hear before we vote. I don't know how we would find that out.
I'm looking at Christina, although she doesn't know it. I don't know how that works either.
Yeah. When people sign up for public comment, do they indicate what their topic is or anything like that? That would.
At this point, I have 2 people that I know are interested in doing public comment. So if we wanted to switch out of order, and I might look to those 2 individuals to see if there's their public comment is in relation to this.
Yeah, if it's in relationship to this, I think it would behoove us to listen, and then if not, if they wouldn't mind to wait just until after, the vote, that would be great.
Christina, I can speak. This is Matt Obashan. I was one of the 2. My comment is about the recommendation in general, not about the specific addition that was just made.
No, that's what I mean.
Yeah, I think it's if there's any comment on the recommendation that we're putting forth to create a new state level agency. Yeah.
I'm happy to go if it's appropriate for the group. I didn't want to jump out of your
Matt, hold on
protocols.
just 1 second, and that is if we have anyone that needs to leave, because we have a very tight time frame here, if you would, I'm going to ask you to if you need to leave before these 2 comments, please register your vote before you leave. And if you are abstaining, please register that as well. We do have a quorum, we are official, but we are going to do a verbal vote, so it's very clear. So I just want that, or I guess you could write it in chat, either way to make it like official.
So
Sorry, Matt,
Susan,
for the interruption.
Jahan, I have to leave, and I can't write it in the chat, so I would like to register my vote as in favor of.
Okay.
Thank
Great.
you very much.
Thank you, Jahan.
Appreciate it.
And hey, this is Anne Marie. I'm the same. I'm on the phone. I can't register in chat. And as a state agency, I'm abstaining.
Okay. Thank you, Anne Marie.
Yeah, thank you.
This is Jay Satz. I am in full support, and so that's my vote. Thank you.
Hi, Jay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Matt, I'm so sorry for interrupting you, but we had this special circumstance. So
I'm a guest at your meeting. I'm jumping in when appropriate.
Okay.
All right, so let's do a little bit of public comment if that's okay. Like I said, I know that there are 2 individuals who I believe want to speak to the recommendation itself. So Matt, will go to you, and John Paul will go to you. If anybody else does want to do public comment, if you could put that in the chat so that I can start to get the list of who wants to give public comment. Like Pamela said, we will have time at the end to do public comment as well. So, and then let's limit comment to 2 minutes for people to make sure that we have enough time to get to that voice vote. And again, for any of our commissioners that do need to leave, please put in the chat that you, whether you support or you don't support, or you want to abstain from the vote before you go. I also want to welcome Rebecca and Jahan and Sue and Jay and Heather. I saw all of you join as our commissioners, so just want to say thanks for being here. And then Matt, let's pass it to you for 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I will try to keep to my 2 minutes. Good morning, members of the Early Childhood Leadership Commission. My name is Matt Obashan. I'm the Director of Elementary and Early Childhood Education in Westminster Public Schools. Today, I'm making public comment in that role, as well as representing a group of public school early childhood administrators from across the state who have been meeting on a regular basis to help be thought partners related to the increasingly complex early childhood systems in Colorado. I would like to thank the ECLC for your leadership and vision to come forward with the recommendation to create a new single state agency dedicated to early childhood that consolidates the various authorities, programs, and funding streams that currently exist across state agencies. As a longtime public school administrator, CPP coordinator, and early childhood educator in both the public and private sectors, I've continually struggled with the complex nature of the dual accountability systems that currently exist in Colorado's ECE system. It's extraordinarily challenging to manage the often duplicate or conflicting requirements that overlap between the Colorado Department of Human Services and the Colorado Department of Education. School districts across the state are working to make a true P3 system that helps to prepare our youngest learners for success at the early elementary grades and subsequently throughout their educational journey. While Proposition EE creates a sense of hope in terms of fully funding early childhood education statewide, it does bring with it the additional stress of the potential for yet another funding entity and corresponding administrative requirements and oversight. From my perspective, the proposal to align all early childhood programs under a single state agency to oversee these funding streams makes sense and allows for an opportunity for streamlining administrative requirements, blending of funding streams, and practical oversight of our early childhood programs. So on behalf of the students in my district and other districts across the state, I again thank you for your leadership and foresight in making this recommendation, and please let me know if I can help in any way as this process moves forward.
That's great. Thank you very much, Matt. We appreciate it. Appreciate your thoughtfulness and the work that you've been doing with others across the state.
And volunteering too.
And we will call upon you. Yeah. Thank you. And next is John Paul.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
2 minutes.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. My name is John Paul Burden, and I am the Director for Exceptional Student Services in the Weld RE4 School District here in Windsor, Colorado, and I'm here on behalf of the Consortium of Special Education Directors, which was formed in 2006 to help inform legislators around the state around policies pertaining to special education. We currently maintain 100% membership of every school district and administrative unit in the state. My comments are pretty short, and that is, like Matt, we do appreciate the effort to streamline. We have been working with CDE and CDHS for many years on trying to find efficiencies and redundancies and having those conversations. And so having an opportunity to work with one agency is one that we support. However, and I will put into the chat box, the IDEA in perspective from a special ed perspective that I'm representing does require already in federal statute that the SEA has the responsibility for ensuring all the requirements for special education programming. And the SEA is defined as CDE in this state. And so I would just like to lodge my only concern with that being that as we try to blend and braid and try to have a different agency do these things, we may be in violation of federal statute as is. So we have concerns about that and making sure that there's a lot of questions within this initiative around the provision of services for kids with disabilities in all settings. Those being under the premise of school districts and therefore Colorado Department of Education. That's where special education under the IDEA lives. And so there's just a lot of unknowns in how this would roll out, both from an administrative perspective as well as the actual provision of care as it pertains to universal preschool in other settings other than schools, and just the capacity that exists in the state to do so. So that's just our main concern, is that federal statute does already identify the SEA as the agency who is the primary for this. So we would just have a lot, would like to be at the table in figuring out how that would work with a third state agency.
Thank you, John Paul. I will say that serving children with special needs has been an ongoing conversation. We've talked about just what you presented in terms of what is the federal statute, what do we need to do? And so I think you also volunteered to help us think about that as we work together. So thank you for bringing that up.
The consortium happily sits at your service to be a partner at the table through all of this.
Okay, great. Thank you.
No, I just want to reiterate that one of the things we know about this, no matter how it finalizes, is that we will need to have strong connections to our partners. At the very least, the transition between 5-year-olds being in the early childhood part, moving into the K through 12 space, is a transition that we must not disturb. We, if anything, make stronger. And I think in the same way, John Paul, that special education as it sits and how it works, not only across all of our mixed delivery system, but going upwards as the kids get older, is going to be incredibly important. How we're going to do that is going to be for great minds to figure out, and how it can be done and how it's allowable. But I think we are very aware that this isn't to create a new silo. That is not our intent at all. This is to blur the edges so that we're all working together.
Right. Thank you, Susan. Are there any more discussion from the ECLC members? Okay, so I will call for a vote. All those in favor of
Pamela, we need to do that. We need to do that by roll call.
Okay.
Yeah, just so Christina can do the call the roll, so it's of record.
Okay, great. So
Absolutely.
Christina.
All right, wonderful. I have recorded so far that Ryan Beiser votes yes in support. Jahan Benton Clark votes yes in support. Marie Braga is abstaining. Jay, I want to jump back to you, Jay Scott, and just confirm that your vote. Are you still on the phone?
I think
she said she was in support.
She was in favor.
Perfect. I know she's got kindergarten today with her students, so just wanted to make sure. But yes, Jay Scott, we have in support. Heather Craiglow.
Hi. So the Head Start Collaboration Office is in support of this new agency.
Wonderful. Melissa Colesman.
Hello. Because I work for a State Department of Education, I'm unable to vote for this, so I need to abstain.
Angie Piccioni.
Whoops. Oh, hang on a minute. Sorry. Oh, you can hear me. I didn't realize I have to abstain, but everyone else from the State Department is abstaining. Do I need to abstain?
I think it's up to the individual department.
Well, I'm going to put myself on record as voting for it.
Yay.
Thank you.
Rachel Hudson.
PHE abstains.
Abstains. Great. Jeannie McQueenie.
I vote in support.
Ida Rhodes.
I vote in support.
Kate Reinemund.
I support.
George Welsh.
I support.
Susan Steele.
I support.
Pamela Harris.
I enthusiastically support.
Double circle. Adib Khan.
I also enthusiastically support.
Happy Haynes.
Enthusiastically support.
Sue Renner.
I support.
Jeff Core.
I support.
Rebecca Cantor.
I don't think you can count it. She did have to leave the call. She voted yes, but she's not here officially, so I don't know if that counts or not.
Did she write it in the chat?
On my email, but not in the chat, so I don't think we can count it. But
okay.
Just so you know, she would if she could.
Okay.
I see her phone number here. Rebecca?
Oh.
Rebecca? Okay, we'll circle back. I think I see your number, Rebecca. Oh, we could hear you for a second.
Now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. I've been here for about 45 minutes for sitting, and I do vote in support.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Got it. Thank you, Rebecca. All right. I think that is everyone. Let me know if I missed any of our commissioners.
Well, everyone will have my back if I get my hand slapped. Right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 7. I have 16 in support with 3 abstaining. I believe that
So the motion passes. Yay! That's awesome.
And Angie, we'll go talk to your boss if you need us to.
I appreciate it. Is Scott still on this call? Is Scott Graginski on
Yes,
this call?
hello. Thank you. I'm just for the record, Angie, State Department, someone said it exactly right. State Department should vote if they'd like to. It's
Okay.
totally up. Yeah,
Okay. Thanks, Scott.
for sure. No problem.
Do we have any more public comment? Is that?
I have not seen anyone add their name into the chat. Is there anyone else who wants to do public comment at this time?
Okay.
No. But I'm glad we heard from the ones who did, because I thought that added a lot to the conversation.
Thank you, Happy, for doing that. Well, I think anyone can share final thoughts. So I was going to share mine. A year ago, we were at the beginning of the pandemic, and it was a really challenging time. Those of you who worked on the emergency childcare, I think we talked every day for hours, including on weekends. We didn't know exactly what to do or what was happening or how to respond to the pandemic. And then I read something that said, instead of just sort of hunkering down and waiting for the pandemic to be over, how could we take this opportunity to reimagine early care and education and make it even better than before? And I just think it's close to miraculous that coming out of all of that, that we are making a recommendation to have a single state agency focused on early care and education and being responsive to our families, our children, and our providers. So I just wanted to share that with you all.
Pamela, I was writing something in the chat, but I'll say it if you don't mind. Just first, a huge shout out and thanks to you and Susan and Christina for shepherding this process. This is a historic vote. I mean, somebody should note this at just before noon on April 6th. We made a historic vote that I hope is going to lead to historic changes in this state. And secondly, thanks to Scott and to our state agencies who are the best partners ever. And if you wanted to be in the trenches with anybody, these are the people, right? We have them right here. And just all of the commission members who've joined in this, but just again, thank you for your leadership.
Thank you, Happy. Jeannie.
Yeah, thank you. Really congratulations. This is a wonderful step forward. It brings to mind for me, what can we do when Susan was reading our charge as the ECLC, and this is one of the things we're supposed to do is offer advice and recommendations. How can we be more nimble during the legislative process, during the session? House Bill 1222 came up. It was a direct response to the report about the shortage of family child care and infant toddler care. And so they came up with a bill. And I just wonder, how can we as an agency, a commission, be just a little bit more nimble so that when these opportunities arise for those of us who can take a vote for ECLC, can weigh in and know which ones we should be putting some authority behind.
Yeah.
Just not a question for today, but a question for maybe our next meeting.
Absolutely.
And we would be remiss if we didn't acknowledge Anna Jo in the chat said it's a dream come true.
Absolutely.
Anna Jo's been there from the beginning. And so it's just great to see all of you folks who have been here from the beginning to really see this come true. So congratulations to everyone. We've got a long road ahead, but it's a road that's going to be more smoothly paved.
Right.
Oh, how nicely said.
Right. Deeb, I see your hands raised.
Yeah, just quickly, I feel that we've been able to get to this point because of the hard work and dedication of so many folks that have cared for our kids in this state. And I'm really proud to be a part of this. And I think this is when the work really starts for us, to Jeannie's point, and that there's so much to be done. And I know that, like so many other people on the commission, as well as other people on the call today, that we're all dedicated to this work and doing it right. And it's such a tremendous opportunity that none of us want to lay it to waste. And so I'm personally putting my commitment out there to do everything I can to make sure that if we are able to put this new state agency in fruition, that we do everything we can to make sure that's serving our kids and our families in Colorado.
That's awesome. Thank you, Deeb. we will be sending the recommendation to Governor Polis, to state agency heads, and to state legislators who are involved and want to move in the same direction as this recommendation. So, is there anyone else who would like to share any comments, last thoughts?
I just want to say that I'm speechless, and you know that never happens. So,
thank you, Susan.
Hey, Pamela, we can't go without a huge thank you to Bill Jager as well. It's just an enormous.
Absolutely.
Whoa, yes.
Absolutely. Yep, thank you. Yeah.
This is like the Academy Awards.
I know. Okay, well, thank you all. We really needed everyone's voice and helping us come to this place. I think we should enjoy it for a while, maybe till Monday. And then, yes, we will begin our work in moving forward. So thank you again. Appreciate it.
Woohoo!
There's Anna Jo.
Right. And I want to thank my mom, and I want to thank my.
Yeah.
Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, Happy. You too.